But our top story, Congress MP Rahul Gandhi and members of his team, election strategist Prashant Kishore, Trinamool Congress leader and Mamata Banerjee's nephew Abhishek Banerjee are reportedly been potential targets of snooping, claims a report by The Wire as part of its collaborative exercise across the world looking into hacking by an Israeli software Pegasus. According to the reports, as many as 300 Indians may have been targeted. The potential targets, according to the report, also include two serving union ministers, Prahlad Patel and Ashwini Vaishnav, and former election commissioner Ashok Lavasa, as well as the woman who had accused former Chief Justice Ranjan Gogoi of sexual harassment. The Modi government has rejected the charges, claiming that the opposition is sensationalizing the issue needlessly. Let's take a look at our top story today.
The Snoopgate scandal just got bigger. Online news portal The Wire has released a second list of names that were potentially targeted for hacking. Congress MP Rahul Gandhi was allegedly marked for hacking between mid-2018 and mid-2019. His close aides were also possible targets. The list includes 5 friends who were in no way linked to politics. The database of phone numbers accessed by France-based journalism non-profit Forbidden Stories and shared with 16 media organizations has many other big names. Poll strategist Prashant Kishore was allegedly targeted during the Bengal Assembly elections, claims The Wire. West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's nephew Abhishek Banerjee and his personal secretary are also named. 2 serving ministers figure in the list. IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav was allegedly targeted for surveillance in 2017 when he was yet to join the BJP. Jal Shakti Minister Prahlad Patel is the second union minister named. Among the non-politicians, former election commissioner Ashok Lavasa was allegedly picked as a potential candidate for surveillance. The Wire claims his name was added to the list after he ruled that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had violated the campaign code during the elections. The other notable name is the woman who accused former CJI Ranjan Gogoi of sexual harassment. The suspected snooping was done using phone hacking spy software Pegasus, manufactured by Israeli firm NSO, which claims to service only governments. The report by The Wire says whether hacking actually took place or not can be confirmed only by conducting a technical analysis of the phones. Israel's NSO group has rejected all allegations. In Parliament on Monday, the Modi government denied charges. The statement came from Ashwini Vaishnav, who himself was allegedly a potential target.
The press reports of 18 July 2021 also appear to be an attempt to malign the Indian democracy and its well-established institutions. And I request all honourable members of the House to examine the issues on facts and logic. It is beyond dispute that the data has nothing to do with surveillance or with NSO, so there can be no factual basis to suggest that a use of the data somehow equates to surveillance.
The Congress and BJP have hit out at each other over the latest Snoopgate episode.
Spying on India's security forces, judiciary, cabinet ministers, opposition leaders including Shri Rahul Gandhi, journalists and other activities through a foreign entity's spyware, not treason, and an inexcusable dismantling of national security.
The BJP strongly refutes, condemns the baseless and bereft of political propriety comments leveled by Congress against the BJP.
The exploding political showdown over Pegasus software has once again reunited the debate over privacy. The question is, was the hacking ordered, and if so, who ordered it? Meanwhile, with the new names cropping up, the entire situation is expected to be making it to the Parliament with fireworks expected. With camera person Satya Ranjan, this is Kamaljeet Sandhu in Delhi for India Today.
Let's go to my first guest tonight, Congress leader and also importantly chairperson of the Standing Committee of Parliament on Information Technology. Appreciate your joining us, Dr. Shashi Tharoor. Dr. Tharoor, your first reactions to the Pegasus hack revelations, what do they suggest to you? Should we be taking it as an issue of critical national importance today?
Rajdeep, it seems to me this is a very serious matter because what has apparently happened, and I say apparently because I'm sure we're all conscious of the government's denial, is that the Pegasus spyware, which is there for tracking terrorists and criminals, and that is only sold by this Israeli firm NSO Group to vetted governments, was apparently used in attempted and successful hacks of smartphones belonging to journalists, human rights activists, politicians, at least one so-called constitutional authority. And so this is a matter of some concern for all of us, because the implication that the government has been snooping on its own citizens, including many going about their own lawful business, is very serious. We are a democracy, the rule of law prevails. While no one would object to the government intercepting communications to track terrorists or prevent crimes, private citizens, including opposition politicians, enjoy a fundamental right to privacy. The Supreme Court has affirmed that in the Puttaswamy judgment. And so if, as is suggested, the ruling party has been using taxpayers' money-funded software to obtain information on its political opponents, as the targeting of Rahul Gandhi or Prashant Kishore suggests, that would be unethical. It would be a misuse of taxpayers' money for partisan political purposes, and it would be illegal because in our country, there are very clearly established procedures as well as rules and laws under which there are authorized exceptions where you can intercept communication for national security, but you can't just go and hack somebody's device.
But Dr. Tharoor, let's be clear. This is what your word is against that of the Modi government. On the floor of the House today, the IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnav said the allegations of snooping have no concrete basis. There is absolutely no truth. They called it a fishing expedition based purely on conjecture and sensationalism. So there are two clear views, Dr. Tharoor. What is the basis, the evidence the government wants to know on the basis of which these allegations are made?
So the government's view, as far as I'm concerned, it has to be taken very seriously. It's an official statement by the IT minister. But he says there is no unauthorized surveillance. The question that automatically raises is, has there been authorized surveillance? And if there has been authorized surveillance, then on what basis was it authorized? The law is very clear. It's got to be national security, the integrity of the nation, national sovereignty, and so on. Very difficult to justify that in relation to some of the names mentioned. You say the names are speculative. Yes, perhaps, but on the basis of the names on the database, a number of phones have been forensically analyzed. And those phones that have been forensically analyzed include 10 in India, of which 7 iPhones in India have been proven to have the Pegasus hacking virus installed. So the question is, who installed it? If you got a virus that only governments are able to deploy, if the Indian government didn't do it, and I hope that their denial will stand up and they didn't do it, then foreign governments must have done it. And isn't that equally worrying for us as a national security concern?
Sure, but Dr. Tharoor, let's be clear. Allegations keep getting made of this nature. Parliament is in session. How does one resolve it given the fact that there is a danger of being trapped in the usual debate? The government will issue a strong denial claiming they did not misuse any spyware. You insist that the government may well have tapped opposition politicians.
I think an independent inquiry is the only way that will set people's minds at rest. That is, if there is an inquiry saying very clearly that this is the evidence, we've seen the facts as we understand it. We've heard all the competent government officials, and we being ideally an independent sitting judge, as well as, of course, I do chair the parliamentary committee, and the parliamentary committee has these very subjects: citizens' data protection and security, citizens' data privacy, and cyber security are all issues on the agenda of the committee. We too will ask our questions, but you will immediately say you're a political body of MPs. That's why I said let's also have, or let's principally have, an independent investigation by a sitting judge. That way the judge will be able
So
to weigh the evidence and decide.
You're calling for an independent probe headed by a judge. Will you, all your political colleagues, including Mr. Rahul Gandhi, submit their phones also for forensic analysis? At the end of the day, you're going to need to provide conclusive proof beyond all the names that are listed, that these phones were indeed hacked. Should all politicians or all those who find their names on the diary submit their phones now voluntarily, Dr. Tharoor?
Not just politicians. As you understand, there were activists, there were journalists, there were others. So if there is a list of, I think about 100 odd names in India have been identified. And if you get a reasonable sample from across those names to submit the phones corresponding to the numbers listed in the database, it should be a voluntary exercise. If they volunteer to submit their phones and those phones are forensically analyzed and hacking is established, then a crime has been committed because it is illegal to do that. And then I think action would have to be taken.
Do you really believe, though, that this is India's Watergate moment, or is it true that, frankly, snooping has existed in this country at various levels by intelligence bureau officials, for the longest time? Are we running ahead of ourselves, particularly at the moment, since the government is claiming, please provide us evidence beyond just names, and has issued this denial?
Well, I think the government's denial must be respected as a government's denial, and there is no question that we have well-established laws and procedures. In fact, even the punishment for the crime is specified. It's apparently up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to 5 lakh rupees, or both, for anybody who conducts unauthorized access to a computer device, computer resource, computer network. That's the law. Section 43 read with Section 66 of the IT Act. So in these circumstances, you actually have the law laying down very clearly what's possible, what's not possible, and even what the punishment is. So the way forward under the law is very clear. But the only way we'll know if the law has been breached is if there is an independent investigation of the entire Pegasus affair.
Final question, Dr. Tharoor. Do you also believe that this is a moment that must ensure that we have this stronger data protection law, a clear legal architecture that ensures if any person's privacy is violated, we have a system of ensuring that we get adequate a response from the state? Otherwise, we'll all worry that the big brother is watching us.
Absolutely. In fact, I've presented a private member's bill of a data protection law now 3 or 4 years ago. And the fact is that others have also been talking about this. There is a private data protection bill being reviewed by a joint select committee, but that committee is already a year and a half overdue in submitting its report. And now the chairman and 2 of its members have been made into ministers. So there'll again be a further delay. I think this is most unfortunate. Every other advanced democracy has actually gone ahead and passed a data protection law in one form or the other, some very impressive and far-reaching, and we could have moved ahead learning from best practices around the world. Unfortunately, our government has chosen to drag its feet on this matter, and I'm sure COVID has also contributed to delays. I certainly would agree with you, a data protection law is necessary. But under the existing laws, there has been a breach. Under the existing laws, there is a violation and an illegality, and that's something very clearly that needs to be investigated and established anyway.
Dr. Tharoor, you made it very clear on more than one occasion. You believe that there should be now a fair and independent inquiry headed by a judge into this case. Appreciate your joining me at the top of the news today. Let's then raise some of the big questions that indeed Snoopgate does raise. Here are some of the questions that we need to raise at the moment. Should there be a probe into Snoopgate, as Dr. Tharoor is suggesting? Is more evidence needed to establish clear hacking across the board? Is the government actually the client of NSO? Should the government come clean on this? Is the Congress charge therefore justified that the Modi government is behind this? Could this be the Watergate moment of Indian politics? Just some of the questions that we're going to raise at the moment. Joining me now is Nalin Kohli, the BJP spokesperson, Supriya Shrinet, the Congress spokesperson. Mr. Kohli, you're not just a BJP spokesperson, you're also a lawyer. Do you concede, though, that at the moment the government's defense is neither here nor there? They are not answering the central question. Did they hire NSO and the Pegasus software in this country? And why was this software then used, as is being alleged, on journalists, activists, and indeed political rivals and bureaucrats? Your response. Should the government first answer that? They still don't answer that. Did you hire the Pegasus software?
Mr. Sardesai, I've heard Dr. Tharoor's statements very clearly. And if you'll ask me what I concede, I'll concede I see only articles written with views with no proof. So I'll just throw you another scenario. If I produce and manufacture a diary and put down your name in it with another 10 other people and say I have reason to believe you indulge in anti-India activities, is that to be taken that this is the defining moment of journalists going down that? Well, show me the proof. NSO has denied it. They have said they are going to even pursue probably their legal suit, a defamation case. Who are the people who are here? That's another interest. Those who are bringing it out are known to be anti-Modi and anti-BJP baiters. So be it. In a democracy, people are entitled to have a point of view completely opposite.
No, is that your best defense?
Leadership.
Is that your best defense, Mr. Kohli, to a global investigation?
Hear me out, you must.
Yeah,
Let
please
me finish.
Is that your best defense is all I ask?
1 minute, hold on. 1 minute, hold on. Let me finish my one. No, well, I have the disadvantage of having first had a senior Congress person finish about 10 minutes with you on an exclusive, and now I'm part of a debate. I'd like to make my points. So I think the first is not my best defense. It's a defense that I'm leaving before the people to make up their minds. I don't have to prove anything to you because the Jain Hawala diary case also said you can't have a diary like this. What is the proof? It's all conjectures. The organizations that are behind it, and yes, we will question the timing. We certainly will. Amnesty shuts its India office. Why? Because they didn't want to follow the law on the FCRA and say we don't want to show where our funding goes. Now, people can they are entitled to run NGOs as private enterprises.
The phones have been subject to forensic analysis, Mr. Kohli. Several of the phones have been subject to forensic analysis, including that of Prashant Kishore, and it shows the presence of Pegasus software.
Out of 45 countries, which Indian's phone has been given?
Prashant Kishore, several journalists, the editors of Wire.
Yes, 1 minute. Let me just finish. I heard you. I heard you. Don't get agitated.
I'm not agitated.
I'm trying to
My phone is not hacked. So
I'm just saying, okay, two ministers have been named. Two minutes. Okay, good for you. So am I. But in my case, I don't even care. I mean, does it really matter? Yeah? Okay. Only people who are doing wrong should really be bothered as terrorists. Otherwise, who's here breaking the law? So let's go on to the other point. Two ministers in the government are supposed to be hacked. So let's take Prahlad Patel ji. So Prahlad Patel ji, as a sitting minister, has given his phone to this Forbidden Stories or whatever is the name of that media house to forensic and analyze it. People may have given it out of the 45 countries. How does that bring India into the picture? Are you trying to say that Ashwini Vaishnav, the IT minister today, has given his phone? Who's given the phone? What is the proof? Here is a story based on some kind of assessment over 45 countries. Maybe some people there have done something wrong. India has branded and said this is a defining moment. Should we now get into a roving and fishing exercise? In this country, we don't have faith anymore of a set of people. Don't have faith in the Supreme Court. The same thing happened with Rafale. No. Supreme Court junked it. Then the review was junked. Now again, no. Rafale is absolutely right. So yes, there is a set of people whose entire business model is based on running down the government and Prime Minister Modi. Let it be their business model.
No, I come back to it before I go to Supreme. Is your best argument questioning the bona fides?
Why should the allegation be the cause of anything further?
Okay. You're saying why should the allegation be the cause of anything further? No, sir. It seems that your best argument is to question the credibility of those who have done this investigation. This is a global investigation done across several newspapers.
Not at all.
Your best point seems to be that these people are anti-Modi, so you don't trust them.
No, I didn't say that. I said show me the proof. That's my first point.
Okay.
You're missing the tree, you're missing the woods for the tree.
Okay, show me the proof.
I'm saying show me the proof.
Okay.
It's an allegation, whether it is two people making an allegation or 20.
So why not have a proof
where is
then?
The proof? What is the proof?
No, so Mr. Kohli, why not have a proof?
Something that's credible.
Mr. Kohli, if you're saying where is the allegation, if you have nothing to hide, sir, but if you have nothing to hide, why not an independent probe? Why not answer the central question? Did the Indian government hire Pegasus or not?
So therefore you go for a... No. So you now go to the good old Sita story. Some dhobi comes up and says that I don't trust Sita Maiya like that, so she should go through the Agni Pariksha. So is this to be the job of the government on a daily basis? An Agni Pariksha because 3 people got up and started making an allegation. Okay. I mean, there were allegations about Mr. Rahul Gandhi's citizenship raised by senior people. What? Did the Congress party subject itself to that? They took the argument of fishing and roving. Did the Congress party, as per an RTI in 2013, not tap 9,000 phones on a monthly basis? So, I mean, was not the former finance minister in the Congress party, Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, then who became president, right to the prime minister that his office was bugged? What are we talking about?
So there's a mix of what about
three here on the basis of allegation expecting the government to stop its work on no proof.
Okay, what about timing? Seem to be two major questions. Where is the evidence? Now respond Supriya Shinde. Nalin Kohli is saying timing suspicious just before a monsoon session, suspicion over the bona fides of those who've carried out the investigation, and crucially, where is the evidence? And of course, what about past instances of snooping? Respond.
You know, firstly, 5 minutes, 25 seconds is how my good friend Nalin spoke. And he really was beating around the bush. And I've never seen Nalin struggle as much. He's a great lawyer. He comes prepared. He's to the point. He's having to resort to what his research department has sent him. I feel sorry because I know he cannot defend the indefensible here. I will point out 2 or 3 things here. The first thing is that Ravi Shankar Prasad, who till not so long back was India's IT and law minister, this evening in a press conference, as the chief spokesperson of the government has said, over 45 countries using Pegasus. Why just target India? Are you saying because you are a part of 45, it's all right for you to do so? No, sir, it is not all right. Because it is illegal here to snoop. It is illegal here for you to hack phones. The central question remains, did you or did you not use Pegasus? That's the question the government needs to answer, yes or no. The second point I want to make, and it's a very important point, it's not just about the president of India's main opposition and his 5 personal friends and 2 colleagues or 7 people there. It's about a woman who leveled sexual harassment charges against the Chief Justice of India. 11 phones connected to her were hacked. You know, look at the phones hacked off.
We don't know whether they were hacked. Let me be very clear. They were potential targets. No. Supriya Shinde, the word uses potential targets.
Targeted list.
Yes.
I correct myself.
Target list.
Yes. Targeted list.
Yes.
I correct myself. Targeted list. Targeted list. Ashok Lavasa, the woman who covers, Election Commission for the Indian Express, and Jagdeep Chokar of the ADR. You look at what happens as far as the government is concerned. Private secretaries of Smriti Irani, private secretaries of Vasundhara Raje, private secretary, cook, gardener of Prahlad Patel, Praveen Togadia. I mean, where is this going to end? You have a constitutional functionary, you have a woman associated with the Chief Justice of India, you have India's main opposition, you have your own people. I mean, is this a surveillance state that we have reduced India to? And the third point that I want to make, and this is an extremely important point and I will make it, you know, the selective reading of what NSO has said will not help. Because NSO has very categorically said, we sell technology solely to law enforcement and intelligence agencies of vetted governments. The part about openly available to anyone, everywhere, anytime relates to HLR lookup services, not to Pegasus. So it's important to point out here that Ashwini Vaishnav, the poor man who rose to speak in the government, found out much later that actually he was being under surveillance too. He was also in that targeted list of people to be surveyed upon as well.
Targets. All potential targets.
And this is the fourth. Potential. All potential targets. And the last point I want to make, Rajdeep, is that WhatsApp global head in a tweet has very categorically stated today that Pegasus is a software that governments are using. This is not the right thing to do. And the unsigned statement from the union government that came yesterday, and many questions were raised on it, very categorically go on to say that actually WhatsApp had rubbished Pegasus software and the spyware. It's absolute nonsense. You didn't even check with WhatsApp what they want to say. Mr. Will Cathcart, who is the global head of WhatsApp, has put out a statement saying this is how Pegasus is being used. So the government is tying itself up in knots instead of asking one basic question. Forget about authorized, unauthorized. The reality is, did you or did you not use Pegasus? That's the bottom line. And Rajdeep, if I may take just 10 seconds. Yes. As a woman, I feel very, very worried. As a woman, I feel worried. I'll tell you why. Because Pegasus can have control over my camera. It can have control over my mic. As a woman, if a phone has, or a hacker has, or a potential surveillance has control over my camera, I can be in my bedroom and imagine what I can be subjected to. And look at what the Turkish journalists have said, what has come out of it. I think this is absolute abuse of state power of any kind. And this attacks the electoral democracy in the worst way possible. If this is not Snoopgate, if this is India's not Watergate movement, then I wonder what is.
You know, the fact though is that at the moment, the critical question to be first asked, and Nalin Kohli, you refuse to answer that, has the Indian government hired Pegasus or not? Why doesn't the government answer that and then say, look, we've only done authorized telephone tapping? But you're not even answering the basic question, and therefore, is it better to order a free probe rather than brazen it out at this moment, Mr. Kohli?
Well, returning the compliments to Supriya ji, I find Supriya ji also an eminent spokesperson and a talented lady as a former anchor. But again, she didn't answer the basic question I asked, which is, show me the proof. So here's a set of allegations, and that's my core point. Somebody comes up, makes an allegation, you say, great job, done. You made allegations, now the person who's got the allegations without an iota of proof, you need to answer them. I mean, what are we going to do? Is it a full-time job? I found, in fact, the list that Supriya ji was saying is really amazing. It's Supriya ji, let me finish. I'm sure you'll have the time.
Yes.
And we always do engage in a very, very civilized debate. All of us do. So let's keep it that way. It's always a pleasure to that way debate. Let the viewer decide who's better. So therefore, on this, or none of us, for that matter. So coming back to the point I was making, that ultimately you've named people in the BJP. I find it rather funny that you have to employ a so-called mega thing called Pegasus. I don't even know what's it about, but yes, somewhere from Israel, NSO organization to vetted governments to snoop on your own people.
Because you may be paranoid enough to snoop on your own.
Agency sleuth, they'll tell you it's far easier to do it without Pegasus.
Indian state may be paranoid enough to snoop on its own. These were the allegations, as was said, that Pranab Mukherjee also once made against his own government.
Perhaps, maybe Indira Gandhi ji, perhaps in the good old days, Indira Gandhi ji.
It could happen today also.
I don't know, but I'm just simply saying
it's a crime. Snooping is a crime. Let's not normalize snooping.
But the point
snooping may have taken place in the past, sir, but it's a crime.
I'm not normalizing snooping. You are hyperboling it. I'm not. I think the truth is in the middle of this.
Okay.
You are hyperboling it on the story, and you're attacking me to say I'm normalizing it. I'm not. The truth is in the middle. Snooping is legitimate under due process of law. It is required for security reasons, but then its misuse of the entire system is unacceptable in a democracy. So that's the stand of the government.
Why not an
but let me ask you one last question, Supriya ji, and you said something valid. Let me just finish. One second. Supriya ji, you raised something critical, which you said as a lady. I'm saying for any individual. You said it can hack into your phone, it can hack into the camera. This can happen even on your own TV. It can happen on your laptop. You don't need a Pegasus for that. I mean, this is very, very basic about what is about phishing and all that. Unfortunately, these are the perils of the digital world. And unscrupulous people not connected with governments, they do it. Bank accounts are fished into. People's credit cards are done in the same way.
Sir, Pegasus.
And these are the perils of it.
No, Mr.
But you can't blame
Kohli.
Narendra Modi for everything that happens.
Just a minute. The fact is Pegasus is sold only to governments as per NSO. The fact is that in the list, one pattern is detected, and a number of the people whose names are there are people who are seen as anti-government or seen as dissenters, and in that crucial period leading up to the 2019 elections, whether it's an Ashok Lavasa, whether it's those who are investigating Rafale, are all on the list. Does that not deserve a probe?
But how is then Prahlad Patel anti-government? He was a minister in the last government.
So have an investigation.
Prahlad Patel ji an anti-government person.
So have an investigation.
Then you are saying his cook, his gardener. It just beats. So these are. So maybe it can also be. Why can't it also be? And that's me asking a counter question. Why can't it also be to give credibility to a story that yes, the opposition was targeted, the anti-Modi and the anti-BJP brigade was targeted. Let's add a few more names. I mean, I just find, where is the proof? You may, Pegasus, or I'm saying amnesty or forbidden stories, whoever may have got proof on other countries. Where is the proof on India?
Okay, that's the question you're keeping on asking. So Supriya Shile, the final word. Where is the proof? Is the question being asked that simply putting out a list of potential targets is not proof as per the BJP? Your final answer.
Yeah, absolutely. But my final answer will begin with one statement. All of us in public life, as journalists, as politicians, as lawyers, we cannot normalize this. And Nalin, I'm actually shocked that you went on to say, does it really matter? Something else can happen. No, we cannot be surveyed upon. We cannot be under surveillance. We cannot be snooped upon. This is illegal. This is not the law of the land. The Constitution guarantees us a fundamental right to privacy. Nalin, you're a lawyer.
The
and
one
for you
question
to say
the BJP is asking is where is the hard evidence?
I'll tell you where it is. I will tell you.
Yes.
I will tell you where the evidence is. Firstly, you know this bunk.
Supriya ji, I
okay,
didn't.
Nalin, one second. Firstly, BJP has to get off its high horse. BJP has to get off its high horse and say this is a conspiracy against us and the monsoon session. This has been done across 45 countries, 17 agencies. You know, there are forensic labs that have vetted phones, including some in India. Are you going to deny all of it? And just because some BJP people's names figure in there, are you going to say this is completely false? The reality is that you've made India into a surveillance state. Your left arm doesn't trust your right. There are 1.5 people running this government and this country.
Will Rahul Gandhi submit his phone to forensic analysis?
Else, they will put their own
Rahul Gandhi submit his phone to forensic analysis?
No, why should he?
Because that will be evidence.
What sort of a statement is that? No, I'm sorry. No. What is that's the evidence? That is absolutely nonsensical.
I think that's a valid question.
The government of the day is answerable to people, and instead of holding them accountable, you want Rahul Gandhi to
as evidence.
What sort of an argument is that?
No, 1 minute. It's evidence. If there is Pegasus software found on Rahul Gandhi's phone, that will be stronger evidence.
But there is evidence of many journalists whose phones have been found with traces of Pegasus. What
it
about
is possible
them?
he's a government
not allow that as,
why should we believe only the Indian government wanted to snoop on him?
You know, this is very fashionable. Whenever the government is in the dock, ask a question of Rahul Gandhi. This is not about Rahul Gandhi.
Yes.
This is about the government of the day and what they want to convert India into. A Snoopgate, a surveillance state. That's what they want to do. This is not about Rahul Gandhi submitting his phone or not. I am not going to get into that debate.
Okay, because he has already clarified saying that he had given up his phone earlier.
Or did they not use Pegasus?
Okay. That's the central question. Did this government use one last time? Okay, ma'am. I will ask one last time Nalin Kohli this question. Nalin, you want to answer it one last time. Did the government of India use Pegasus or not? Will Ashwini Vaishnav or his predecessor Ravi Shankar Prasad or the Home Minister of the country Amit Shah come before Parliament and answer that question? Simple. Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani.
Let Ashwini Vaishnav.
No, please, ma'am. Please, ma'am.
1 minute.
Doodh ka doodh, pani ka pani.
Please, ma'am.
Parliament functions. 1 minute, hold on. May I?
Yes.
May I?
Yes, of course you may.
When Parliament functions, if Parliament is allowed to be function, when ministers can't be introduced to a Parliament because of disruption, I mean, then certainly the opposition, under the rules, can ask for a discussion on anything.
No, Supriya, she need 1 minute.
Today clearly said, ask tough ones.
Ma'am, 1 minute. Nalin Kohli, will you answer the simple question?
Supriya ji, I didn't interrupt you.
I'm asking you, why can't the government tell this country, did it hire Pegasus or not? Period. As a starting point.
So therefore, you asked, I'm telling you right now, if you wish to ask, you asked me, will the IT minister, Ashwini Vaishnav ji, say so? I was telling you the answer. Every opposition party could ask the same question in Parliament. A Parliament session, if it runs, who am I to answer it? I'm not in government, I'm not the IT minister.
He had the opportunity today, he didn't answer it.
No, absolutely. So therefore, you allow Parliament to function and you do what you have to do.
He made a statement in Parliament, but did not answer that.
Exercise. When you say Rahul Gandhi, will he give his phone to prove it? They say, why should Rahul Gandhi come into the picture? So this can't be.
It is not about Rahul Gandhi. It is about citizens of this country and the big boss watching. That is the problem. It's about big boss watching.
So he's not a citizen of this country, man.
Let's leave it there. Supriya Shrinet.
That Mr. Modi and the rest of you are doing. That's what you're doing.
Okay. Supriya Shrinet, Nalin Kohli, I couldn't get an answer to that question. Will the minister come and tell us whether Pegasus was hired or not, whether they bought it or not? Now remember, there is also a legal angle. There is also a legal angle to Snoopgate. At present, of course, there is a law which remains ambiguous, because the fact is that you have, in the absence of a clear law, the opportunity for many people to get away. How do you therefore ensure some element of legal accountability? Do we have enough laws in place to ensure that those who may be allegedly involved in snooping are in some way held accountable for their actions. That's what I want to focus on now. I'm joined at this moment by special guest Siddharth Luthra, is, remember, senior advocate in the Supreme Court. M.K. Venu, one of the founding editors of The Wire, which has done this investigation. Apar Gupta is from Internet Freedom, their executive director that looks at these issues. Thank you all very much for joining me. I'm going to come to each of you to ask the question. First, you, M.K. Venu, since you're part of the founding team of Wire which did this investigation, want to ask you very clearly. Will The Wire now, any of you, particularly someone like you who allegedly has been hacked, will you go to court and seek any support from the legal system, Mr. Venu?
Well, Rajdeep, I mean, there is definitely a case for me and others whose telephones were clearly tested as having been infected by Pegasus. There is a case for us to go to court to at least find out what happened, who did it. If the government claims that that it did not do it, then shouldn't there be an inquiry, some kind of a inquiry commission, which also can be one of the one of the demands.
No, but are you considering going to court, Venu, under the IT Act?
At the moment, Rajdeep, we are just trying to just go through the motions of putting out all the stories. There are some other journalists who are generally talking about it, wondering whether something like this should be done. I think I'll probably will know in about 2-3 days' time. The moment I know it, I'll come back to you. I'll tell you. But definitely there is a case, Rajdeep, for going to, for seeking some remedy, Rajdeep.
Right.
Because at the moment, Rajdeep, I heard you speak to the previous BJP spokesman who said there is absolutely no proof. Rajdeep, the point is, the state is always in a much stronger position to protect itself, its secrets, versus citizens. Citizens have very, they do not at any time have the kind of strength or the kind of backing to fight the state. So the only forum that citizens can go to is courts, and I think it's a good idea. It should be considered. Yeah.
Okay, let me take that to you, Siddharth Luthra, first. As a criminal, one of the country's top criminal lawyers, country's top lawyers, do you believe that there is a case for those who are on this potential targets, some of whom have gone through forensic analysis that show that their phone was infected by Pegasus, that they can go to court?
So, Rajdeep, the law is very clear. Phone tapping in India is only permissible under the Telegraph Act, and that's phone tapping. So as this is concerned, there is a specific provision under the Information Technology Act, Section 43, which is punishable under Section 65, and there are a host of other provisions regarding breach of privacy, which make such kind of unauthorized access, if it is unauthorized access, if it is non-governmental access, it's a punishable offense. So we must understand, while the government of the day has powers both under the Telegraph Act and under the Information Technology Act to access calls, but that is to be done by a very stringent procedure and in a very limited circumstances, and it's not something which can be done as a matter of course. So therefore the issue is twofold. If this is not a government tapping, then clearly it's been done by a private party, and that's clearly an offense, and that must be looked at. It's a matter which requires investigation. According to me, the offenses, if the facts are as stated, the offenses are apparent, and there should be an investigation by the police, by the CBI, or whichever agency is deputed to do this.
Okay, so you're saying that the first step should be that there should be a proper investigation by the police or by the requisite investigating agency. Apar Gupta, there is a belief that this is a black hole. The right to privacy in the Kutuswamy case was emphasized, but there's a belief that this could be a black hole. Do you believe it's a black hole or it's an open and shut case?
I don't believe it's an open and shut case. I don't either believe it's a black hole. I do believe, as Mr. Luthra was just pointing out, it needs a credible investigation into these allegations. We need to remember the first set of these revelations came in 2019, and the response by the government of India was evasive. And we are seeing a similar scenario play out now. In terms of legal processes, yes, as Mr. Venu was pointing out, that even you can consider broader inquiry, which can be constituted, given that there are more allegations which are coming through in terms
But
of
Apar, who carries it out? Sorry to intervene. Who carries out an investigation? The state is never going to investigate its own. The police is never going to go and find out, did the IB snoop on its own? Who carries out such an investigation?
That is correct. I think, Rajdeep, rather than a clear answer which focuses on just one sole government body conducting this, I think what's needed is a range of investigatory actions, because the revelations here are truly shocking, and they're very widespread, from the election commissioner to journalists to opposition leaders and even a constitutional functionary, allegedly. Now, so I think a court mandated inquiry, a joint parliamentary committee, there are several ways to look at it and approach this problem, given how large this is.
No, but I want to know from my lawyers, including you, Siddharth Luthra, the evidence. The BJP, you might have heard their spokesperson, Nalin Kohli, also a lawyer, saying, where is the evidence? What is the evidence that you can suggest to say that these people were snooped into? Now, some of them, including Venu, gave their phones for forensic analysis, and their phones were found to be infected by Pegasus software. Is that enough, in your view, to order a full inquiry, a court-monitored probe, possibly, Mr. Luthra?
I think the law is very clear that if there has been a hacking of the phone, and these are what we call in criminal law cognizable offences, where the police have to register an FIR based on a complaint, the oral complaint and the submission of the electronic instrument should be enough to begin an investigation. Where it will end is a separate matter, because that has to go through the processes. Whether it is proved or not is a separate issue. But according to me, there is, if one of the aggrieved people, if one of the people who has been hacked or believe they've been hacked goes to the police, I'm confident that the police will have to register an FIR and investigate the matter.
So how will the police investigate the state, Mr. Luthra?
May I just clarify? The police is supposed to be independent in India and to be able to investigate anybody. After all, prime ministers, former prime ministers have also been prosecuted. Ministers have been prosecuted. People in all walks of life have been prosecuted.
Right.
I think there is a mechanism under the law. If the police don't do it, you can go to court, get a magistrate's order for investigation, or go to the High Court and writ and say, we filed a complaint which describes a cognizable offence, register an FIR.
Right.
So there are legal mechanisms, and that is, of course, it's not my place to manage them. I'm only here speaking as an ostensible expert, but it is for the aggrieved persons to determine whether they want to proceed or not.
We have one of the aggrieved persons, M.K. Venu. You have been given almost a pathway in a way by Mr. Luthra, saying, why don't you go ahead and register a complaint and get an FIR filed?
Definitely, Rajdeep, as I said, of the 37 phones which were tested from among the Indian journalists, at least 10, Rajdeep, have actually tested for infection, Pegasus infection, including Prashant Kishore's and other journalists like Paranjoy and a few others. So we can definitely form a group, and as Siddharth Luthra suggested, seek some remedy. Either go to file a police complaint. Of course, when you file a police complaint, Rajdeep, you don't assume it's not against the state. It will be initially against some unknown person. They'll have to figure out who would have done it, right? Or we can go to the court also. Maybe I think I'll consult Siddharth Luthra on this after the show is over.
Yeah, you've got someone to consult. Apar, you want a final word? Or you want to give any suggestion?
Yes.
Because this, our politicians will be caught in a tu-tu meh-meh. The serious issues of privacy remain. It's not enough to say that snooping took place in the past. We live in another, hopefully in a new 21st century age where the right to privacy has now been established. What do you believe are the options?
I believe more than the options. I was viewing your first segment, Rajdeep, and it almost seemed as if there was no clear answer whether the government has done it. But there's also an absence of any interest by it in investigating these allegations, even when they are credible. Because, what they are going over and they're stating is that there is no sense in terms of any a prima facie evidence that this occurred. But as Mr. Venu has said, forensic analysis has occurred. It's not only occurred, and it's not only the wire. It's occurred at the stage of, let's say, Amnesty Tech. You don't believe Amnesty Tech, well and fine. Then what about Citizen Lab, which has also peer-reviewed those findings? I think there's enough evidence, at least for the government itself, to show a little concern, given its own cabinet ministers are now being also brought within this ambit.
Okay. I think what is coming through is clearly is that this is a moment to at least ensure there is a transparent and fair inquiry. I think that's coming right through at this moment. That's the least that we can expect in the age in which we live. If the government has nothing to hide, why is the government afraid of any kind of probe? M.K. Venu, Siddharth Luthra, Apar Gupta, appreciate your joining me. Let me